glorious day. Well, welcome to our program, All That 20s. This is Joseph Rutkowski, our pianist, and Jim Mackin, our historian. He'll be introducing himself in a moment, and I'm Ilana Meredith, the singer.
And thank you, Clarissa Rogers, for making this happen. We are so thrilled to be here. We revel in the Great American Songbook, and this afternoon, and hello Southampton, this afternoon we're going to concentrate on the 1920s. The first song that Ilana is going to do is a song by Irving Berlin. Perhaps you've heard of him. He wrote a song that went like this. How dry I am. Everybody knows that melody. It didn't become a real big song, but when Al Jolson sang it, it certainly did. And we all know all his other great songs. There's No Business Like Show Business, even White Christmas, Easter Parade. I mean, all the great songs. I know most of them. But this is the 1920s, and it's a very, very important transitional decade because this is when jazz comes into its own. We get away from old European classical music and we start to do modern American music. If there's any one or two heroes that make this happen, I would say it's Louis Armstrong and Bing Crosby. They start to syncopate songs, and this makes a profound difference. So we're going to get a first taste of a song from Ilana here, and it's a lesser-known Irving Berlin song from 1921 during the Prohibition period, but it's very appropriate, and you'll be introduced to, if you haven't heard it already, after you get what you want, you don't want it.
Listen to me, honey dear. Something's wrong with you, I fear. It's getting harder to please you, harder and harder each year. I don't want to make you blue, but you need a talking to. Like a lot of people I know, here's what's wrong with you. After you get what you want, you don't want it. If I gave you the moon, you'd grow tired of it soon. You're like a baby, you want what you want when you want it. But after you are presented with what you want, you're discontented. You're always wishing and wanting for something. When you get what you want, you don't want what you get. And though I sit upon your knee, you'll grow tired of me. 'Cause after you get what you want, you don't want what you wanted at all. Don't you say that I'm unkind. Think it over and you'll find you've got a changeable nature. You're always changing your mind. There's a longing in your eye that is hard to satisfy. You're unhappy most of the time. Here's the reason why. After you get what you want, you don't want it. If I gave you the moon, you'd grow tired of it soon. And though I sit upon your knee, you'll grow tired of me. 'Cause after you get what you want, you don't want what you wanted at all. Still too real. You want to say, oh, that was 100 years ago, people felt so differently, but absolutely not.
If that song sounded at all familiar with you, and it's really hard to top Ilana's version, you might have seen Marilyn Monroe sing it in the 1954 movie, There's No Business Like Show Business, or you might have seen it featured in Boardwalk Empire.
Yeah.
But hopefully that song will get more appreciated. The next song, the lyrics of which were written by one of my favorite entertainment characters of all time, the great Billy Rose, who probably is most famous for creating the Aquacade in the 1939-40 World's Fair. He married Celeste Holm at the time. Before that, he was married to Fanny Brice. And he wrote the lyrics to a lot of songs that people would know, like songs like, Would You Like to Take a Walk? Does Your Chewing Gum Lose Its Flavor on the Bedpost Overnight? Tonight You Belong to Me, which was a hit in 1956 by Young, Patience, and Prudence, Without a Song. It's Only a Paper Moon. We can go on and on about Billy Rose. We're not going to do that other than to tell you this next song he wrote is a favorite of tap dancers. And so it's done most people recognize Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. doing it. And it's from 1927. Al Jolson was the composer along with another fellow, Dave Dry, but Billy Rose wrote the lyrics, and it's called Me and My Shadow.
Shades of night are falling, and I'm lonely, standing on the corner, feeling blue. Sweethearts out for fun, they pass me one by one. Yes, I wind up like I always do, with only me and my shadow strolling down the avenue. Me and my shadow, not a soul to tell our troubles to. And when it's 12 o'clock, we climb the stair. We never knock, for nobody's there, just me and my shadow, all alone and feeling blue. When the sun sets on the far horizon and the parlor lamps begin to glow, Jim and Jack and John, they put their slippers on. They're all set, but we're still on the go. So lonely, me and my shadow strolling down the avenue. Me and my shadow, not a soul to tell our troubles to. When I go out at night with my old pal, we never fight about any gal, just me and my shadow, all alone and oh so blue.
Thank you, Ilana. And the next song we're going to do is George Gershwin's first big breakthrough hit. A friend of his, Irving Caesar, and I had the pleasure of seeing and watching Irving Caesar perform just before he passed away, He was on the M5 bus in Manhattan, and he wrote the lyrics to this next song. He brought it to George, living on 103rd Street at the time. George loved it, put it into a show with 60 chorus girls whose slippers lit up when they turned all the lights off on the stage. So it's quite a production, but it required, and we keep touching upon Al Jolson. Al Jolson heard it at a private party played by George Gershwin, and he put it into his show Sinbad, and this became a mega, mega, mega hit. It's actually a little bit of a parody on the Stephen Foster Old Folks at Home, but please enjoy Ilana's interpretation of the great Swanee.
I've been away from you a long time. I never thought I'd miss you so. Somehow I feel your love was real. Near you I long to be. The birds are singing, it is songtime. The banjo strumming soft and low. I know that you yearn for me too. Swanee, you're calling me. Swanee, how I love you, my dear old Swanee. I'd give the world to be among the folks in DIX. I even know my mama's waiting for me, praying for me down by the Swanee. The folks up north will see me no more when I go to the Swanee shore. Swanee, Swanee, I'm coming back to Swanee. Mama, Mama, I love the old folks at home. Swanee, Swanee, I'm coming back to Swanee. Mama, Mama, I love the old folks at home.
So the next song is going to be another Irving Berlin gem. Irving Berlin lost his first wife in the early 1920s, and then he met a woman named Ellen Mackey. So let me give you a little bit of background on that. Ellen Mackey was the daughter of Clarence Mackey. Clarence Mackey lived close to the highest point in Nassau County on Long Island, in Roslyn Harbor Hill actually. There are still vestiges of his mansion there. Mackey was the heir to the Comstock Lode fortune. There were four men who discovered the Comstock Lode in Virginia City, Nevada, and they kind of split up the fortune. And John Mackey, who was Clarence's father, became wealthy overnight. In fact, he has the second largest grave on Long Island, mausoleum on Long Island, the largest being that of William Steinway. I apologize for all these accoladic details, but they kind of lead up to something interesting, because Irving meets Ellen Mackey in a nightclub, a little dive down below on Lower Broadway in the Village, and they start having a relationship and whatnot. But the father, Clarence Mackey, does not want his daughter to be associated with a Jew, and a Jew in the theater and music entertainment business. Ironically, in a few years, Clarence Mackey would have financial difficulties after the stock market crash and whatnot, and Irving kind of bailed him out, which was interesting. But anyhow, Irving goes through this really tough period where he writes his darkest songs. He writes How Deep is the Ocean, Blue Skies, All Alone. If you know these songs, they really are wonderful, deeply profound laments. And then he writes a song that Ilana's going to do, and of all the versions I've heard of this, Ilana does the most spectacular version. It usually brings a tear to my eye. So let's listen to Ilana do What Do I Do?
that was so divine, 'tis broken and cannot be mended. You must go your way, and I must go mine. But now that our love dreams have ended, what'll I do when you are far away and I am blue? What'll I do? What'll I do when I am wondering who is kissing you? What'll I do? What'll I do with just a photograph to tell my troubles to? When I'm alone with only dreams of you that won't come true, what'll I do? Do you remember a night filled with bliss? The moonlight was softly descending. Your lips and my lips were tied with a kiss with an unhappy ending. What'll I do when you are far away and I am blue? What'll I do? What'll I do when I am wondering who is kissing you? What'll I do? What'll I do with just a photograph to tell my troubles to? When I'm alone with only dreams of you that won't come true, what'll I do?
So for our next song, by way of history, we're going to reach ahead to 1959, the #1 song in the year of 1959. Anyone want to guess what the #1 song in 1959 was? I'll give you a choice. Oh, yes?
Very, so she said the name of the song, Pirate Jenny. But coming from the same,
Gee, you are
Musical.
ridiculously
I love
close, because the #1 song in 1959 was Mac the Knife, the version by Bobby Darin. It beat out the #2 song, the Battle of New Orleans. If you remember that song. I can recite all top 40 songs from 1959, or from most years, but we won't do that. But in 1959, Bobby Darin, recording for Atlantic Records, there's a part of the song where he's saying, "Now Jenny Diver, ho, ho, yes, Suki Tawdry, oh Miss Lottie Linya, and old Lucy Brown. Oh, the line forms on the right, babe, now that Mackie's back." So Bobby Darin is playing with all the names and concepts and images and whatnot from, you know, the show that comes from. And the show really begins in 1720, if you can believe that. There was a composer and dramatist by the name of John Gray who composed the Beggar's Opera. And it became a standard in very off-Broadway lore. But in the 1920s, the composer Kurt Weill and the playwright Bertolt Brecht, operating out of Berlin, reworked that Beggar's Opera into the timeless three-penny opera, which then came to Greenwich Village and became kind of quite a thing off-Broadway. And that's the song that Bobby Darin reprises. The interesting thing with Pirate Jenny, that was the lesser-known song in the show, although it was considered revolutionary and popular from the Beggar's Opera. But I'll give you this bit of insight. Jenny Diver is a low-class maid in a crummy little hotel. She imagines how she would avenge the townspeople who think little of her. She imagines a pirate ship arrives, this is all in her head, and it fires its cannons, destroys all the buildings in town except for the hotel where she's working. The pirates come ashore, they chain up all the townspeople, and they present them to Jenny. She orders the pirates to kill them all, and then she sails away with the pirates. I mean, it's a fantasy to the nth degree. So when Ilana sings Pirate Jenny, keep all of that in mind as you hear the story. And of course, if you had seen this be performed on off-Broadway, you would just be dazzled by it all. But instead, you're going to be dazzled by Ilana's interpretation.
You gentlemen can watch while I'm scrubbing the floors, and I'm scrubbing the floors while you're gawking. And maybe once you tip me, and it makes you feel swell on a ratty waterfront in a ratty old hotel, and you never guess to who you're talking, and you never guess to who you're talking. Suddenly that night, there's a scream in the night, and you yell, "What the hell could that have been?" And you see me kinda grinning while I'm scrubbing, and you say, "What the hell she's got to grin?" And the ship, the black freighter, with a skull on its masthead, will be coming in. Then you gentlemen can say, "Hey girl, finish the floors, get upstairs, make the beds, earn your keep here." You toss me your tips and look out at the ships, but I'm counting your heads as I make up the beds, 'cause nobody's gonna sleep here tonight. None of you will sleep here. Then that night, there's a bang in the night, and you yell, "Who's that kicking up a row?" And you see me kinda staring out the window, and you say, "What she's got to stare at now?" And the ship, the black freighter, turns around in the harbor, shooting guns from the bow. Then you gentlemen can wipe off that laugh from your face. Every building in town is a flat one. Your whole stinking place will be down to the ground. Only this cheap hotel standing up safe and sound. And you yell, "Why the hell spare that one?" And you yell, "Why the hell spare that one?" All the night through with the noise and to do, you wonder, who's that person lives up there? Then you see me stepping out into the morning, looking nice, with a ribbon in my hair. And the ship, the black freighter, runs a flag up its masthead, and a cheer rings the air. By noontime, the dock is all swarming with men, coming off of that ghostly freighter. They're moving in the shadows where no one can see, and they're chaining up people, and they're bringing them to me, asking me, "Kill them now, or later?" Asking me, "Kill them now, or later?" Noon by the clock, and so still on the dock, At quiet of death, I'll say, right now. And they'll pile up the bodies, and I'll say, that'll learn you. And the ship, the black freighter, disappears out to sea, and on it is me.
Weill can get awfully deep and dark. But Ilana, you bring that song to life with the whole story and whatnot, and that's just wonderful. I used at dinner conversations, I used to ask friends of mine who were in the music business and who were not, what did they think was the greatest song in the 20th century? And I've limited to before Beatles and Bob Dylan and whatnot, which I think is just a different genre of song, although there's some wonderful songs from the later period for sure. And I'll brainstorm with you off the top of my head as to what usually came up. And one of them was a Kurt Weill song, that September song.
Oh, yes.
Anybody knows September song? It's just a masterful song. Then in the Knickerbocker Holiday was the show. It's about Peter Stuyvesant, who was the 4th mayor of New York City before the English had a friendly takeover of New Amsterdam. Another song that would come up from time to time would be Jerome Kern's Smoke Gets in Your Eyes. But Richard Rodgers said the greatest song ever written in the 20th century was another Jerome Kern song that unfortunately doesn't get much attention other than in the world of jazz and in the realm of people who know the Great American Songbook, and that's All the Things You Are, a 1939 song. It's an incredibly complex, masterful song. We can go on. Gershwin had a number of possibilities in the top 10 from the 20th century. Cole Porter always comes up in conversation with Begin Begin or Night and Day. Night and Day has that famous one-note melody that introduces the song, like a beat, beat, beat of a tom-tom, like the tick-tick-top of a stately clock that stands against the wall, and just one note, and then it goes into Night and Day, and it's just incredibly inventive song with all sorts of subtleties, key changes and whatnot, really evoking the mood that he got when he was in Morocco. So, and the next song is Cole Porter. So, that's very appropriate. When we think of Cole Porter, we think of, well, occasionally sexuality, risque songs, Too Darn Hot, for example. My Heart Belongs to Daddy. How could you not interpret that as a risque? Anything Goes, the great musical from 1934. Love for Sale. I'm obviously picking songs that support my thesis here, but Let's Do It, Let's Fall in Love, Birds Do It, Bees Do It, Let's Misbehave. I mean, these are all Cole Porter classics and whatnot. Even the one that Ilana's going to sing now from 1929, The Tale of the Oyster. But before we do that, one of the first things that ever turned me on to Cole Porter was in his song, I Get a Kick Out of You. And I think most people know that song. There's been many different iterations of it. The Four Seasons in rock and roll did it, but Sinatra did a version. Fred Astaire, I think, did the original. It's got a line in there, and these great composers can do this. There's a line in there where there's 5 rhymes in one line. You can brag to your friends that you know, flying too high with some guy in the sky is my idea of nothing to do, so I get a kick out of it. Only Cole Porter and Irving Berlin can actually pull that off. So listen to some of the witticisms in Tale of the Oyster, which Ilana's going to do now. Cole Porter, 1929.
This is my oyster, because I don't know how to interpret, embody an oyster. So you see me doing this, that's what it is. Down by the sea lived a lonesome an oyster, every day getting sadder and moister. He found his home life awfully wet and longed to travel with the upper set. Poor little oyster. Fate was kind to that oyster, we know, when one day the chef from the park casino saw that oyster lying there and said, "Ha ha, I will put you on my bill of fare." Lucky little oyster. See him on his silver platter, watching the queens of fashion shatter, hearing the wives of millionaires discuss their marriages and love affairs. Thrilled little oyster. See that bivalve social climber feeding the rich Mrs. Augenheimer. See him as he gaily glides down to the middle of her gilded insides. Proud little oyster. After lunch, Mrs. H complains and says to her hostess, "Oh, I've got such pains. I came to town in my yacht today, but I think I'd better hurry back to Oyster Bay." Scared little oyster. Off they go through the troubled tide, the yacht rolling madly from side to side. They've tossed about till that poor young oyster finds that it's time he should quit his cloister. Oh! I'm so sorry. Comes the oyster. Back once more where he started from, he murmured, "I haven't a single qualm, for I've had a taste of society, and society has had a taste of me." Wise little oyster.
We're very kind to appreciate Cole Porter and certainly Ilana's rendition of that song. It's not a well-known song, but it's just wonderful. Would you be surprised if I told you that Ilana acts in many performances, does voiceovers, teaches theater? She just finished directing the Addams Family musical at a high school.
I'm so excited.
Much more. It's just incredibly talented. And Joe here, don't get him started on Burt Bacharach, right? But he's going to do some 4 brief piano solos that'll cover some really well-known, very, very important songs. We'll touch upon that right after he finishes. And I told him specifically with the last song, the Fats Waller tune, Ain't Misbehavin', that he really captures the barrelhouse spirit of Fats Waller. I've listened to a lot of Fats Waller, but Joe really kind of, he does that just wonderfully. So, Joe? Thank you, Joe. Ain't Misbehavin', 1929, one of the most important songs of the 20th century because it's part of that important transition from earlier classical, i.e. European music, over to American syncopated music. I can tell you that the song was in a little show called The Hot Chocolates up in Connie's Inn, up in Harlem, near the Lafayette Theater on 7th Avenue, then 7th Avenue, today it's Adam Clayton Powell Jr. Boulevard, and about 132nd Street. And it was so successful, they moved it down into the Times Square area. And the pit conductor, if you could believe this, was Louis Armstrong. And he would do a solo on it. And the audience went so wild that he would have to leave the pit, get up on the stage, and reprise the solo part because it's so tuneful. Everybody kind of got it. It was just absolutely incredible. The theater he did it in, the Hudson Theater, got saved about 15 years ago because the developer built a huge hotel on top of it, thereby saving it. And that's the theater that started The Tonight Show. First Dave Garroway, then Steve Allen, then Jack Paar, then Johnny Carson, Jay Leno, Jimmy Fallon. You know that whole lineage and whatnot. Very important. So the song before that Joe did, Old Man River, I could talk about that for hours, but I'll just tell you this. To me, that was the first musical where we all knew 5 songs from the musical. You know, from Carousel, Oklahoma, Sound of Music, Camelot, all of those musicals, most of us know like 5 songs from those shows. And I think the very first was Showboat. Before that, Joe played Gershwin, which was wonderful, and he also played Stardust. Stardust is always on every critic's top 10 songs of the 20th century list. Stardust is just an amazing song. It's thought to be the most recorded song of all time. I'm not sure there's any easy way to validate that. But anyhow, the next song is also George Gershwin, and in this case, Gershwin is writing with Oscar Hammerstein, of all people, and also Otto Harbach, who was a renowned lyricist of the time. The song is from 1925. It's very appropriate for the 1920s because that's the period of Prohibition. So when Irving Berlin wrote How Dry I Am, a couple other songs, we won't go off on that tangent, but in this case he writes a kind of parodic song called Vodka. And wait till you hear Ilana's interpretation of this song. This was made for Ilana, even though Gershwin and Hammerstein wrote this thing like 75 years before she was born.
They knew it. Well, also imagine this Poland Springs bottle is something different, and there's not just water in here. Of all concoctions, alcoholic, I know but one that's diabolical. I simply thrive on old champagne and sparkling burgundy, whiskey, control, Mosella, eau de vie. They're just like tea, but vodka. Don't give me vodka. For when I take a little drink, I forget to think what a little drink can do to me. Vodka. Don't give me vodka. For when I take a little nip, I begin to slip. And I start romancing with the man that I am dancing with for vodka. Makes me feel odd. I go and grab a 6'2". Anyone will do if he's only wise enough to see. Oh, not scream. Should he kiss me? Couldn't if I would. Wouldn't if I could. Vodka, you ruined me. Vodka, don't give me vodka. For when I take a little drink, I forget to think what a little drink can do on me. Vodka, don't give me vodka. For when I take
with the man that I am dancing with for vodka. Makes me feel odd, I go and grab a 6 for 2. Anyone will do if he's only wise enough to see. I'm not scream. Should he get me? Couldn't if I would. Wouldn't if I could. Vodka, you ruin me.
It's easy to enjoy Ilana's interpretation and Joe on the accordion. And we've got to mention Joe plays just about any instrument. He has a love affair with the clarinet, and he's classically trained, and he plays my favorite, all that Schubert stuff in A. But anyhow, I was going to say the next song we do is kind of emblematic of the 20s in this sense. One of the songs that might be considered emblematic of the 60s was Bob Dylan's Times They Are A-Changin', which inspired Sam Cooke loosely, and I say loosely because he was more inspired by the idea than any of the words or the thoughts of it, to write a song. Sam Cooke actually wrote it. It didn't get released until a few weeks after he passed away, and it became an anthem of the Black Civil Rights Movement. That is, a change is going to come. So using the word change, and certainly when you write a masterful song like Cooke did and Dylan did, it's fantastic. In the 1920s, there's another emblematic song with the word change in it, and that's what Ilana's going to do now. I'm just going to tell you some very brief history on it. The first recording of it was by the great Ethel Waters in 1921 on Black Swan Records, which was a very small independent record label in Harlem. And it became a pretty big hit in those days because that was the first or second year of actually recording blues music. Blues came up from Memphis, Tennessee, vis-a-vis W.C. Handy and some of his early songs like Beale Street Blues and St. Louis Blues. And then it kind of got embraced into the New York music world into the 20s. And because blues music uses some flatted notes, flatted 7th and 5th and 3rd on occasion, it allows for more expressiveness and helps with the syncopation of these new song interpretations and whatnot. The song was reprised in a lot of musicals like Bubbling Brown Sugar in 1976, and Fame, which was on Broadway in 1999. Billie Holiday, who didn't live long enough, in her last recording session, she recorded this song, and again, I think it's a perfect song for us to tell you what the 20s are all about without lecturing and going on indefinitely. And the composer is Billy Higgins with Benton Overstreet, 1921. They're both out of Harlem. Billy Higgins was a very renowned black vaudevillian comic, dancer, songwriter, director, entrepreneur, many, many, many things. Lesser known. People mostly haven't even heard of the names. But now let's listen to Ilana sing. And I'll tell you, the first time I heard this song was Sophie Tucker on the Ed Sullivan Show. So you might recognize it from that or from somewhere else. There'll be some changes made.
They say don't change the old for the new, but I found out that this will never do. When you grow old, you don't last long. You're here today and then tomorrow you're gone. I loved a man for many years gone by. I thought his love of me would never die. He made some changes from old to new. From now on, I'm
gonna make some changes too. For there's a change in the weather, there's a change in the sea. So from now on there's gonna be a change in me. My walk will be different, my talk and my name. Ain't nothing about me is gonna be the same. I'm gonna change my way of living, and if that ain't enough, I'm gonna learn how to strut my stuff. 'Cause nobody wants you when you're old and gray. There'll be some changes made today. There'll be some changes made. I'm gonna change to new fashions. I'm gonna change to new shoes. I'm even gonna change the bootlegger that brings me my booze. I must make some changes from old to the new. I must do things just the same as others do. I'm gonna change my long-term mama for a little short fat. I'm even gonna change the number where I live at, 'cause I must have some loving or I'll fade away. There'll be some changes made today. Oh, there'll be some changes made.
On behalf of Ilana Meredith and Rutkowski, I thank you now and we thank you for your patience and because we're filming this and we're within a 1 hour time constraint, our film's going to run out, but may I suggest that we fade out on a Beatles interpretation of an old song.
Oh wait, I think actually we're gonna do something else.
What do you want to do? You do it?
I think it's a song we all know,
Okay.
or most people know.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Oh, you'll definitely know this song. Ray
It's a
Henderson and Mark
mystery
Dixon,
song.
right?
Bye bye blackbird, please sing along. If you know the words, or just hum along, or just bounce along. Pack up all my carrying one, here I go, singing loud. Bye bye blackbird, where somebody waits for me, sugar sweet, so is he. Bye bye blackbird.